Now let's move on to the next speaker. It's Xander Fransen, CTI Analyst at the CCB. He's also stepping in today for another colleague. In case you're listening, Katerina, get well soon. Xander will guide us through the cyber threats landscape for Q3 2025. It will include trends, metrics, and recommendations straight from the CCB's vault. Xander, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Caroline, for the introduction. So let's dive into the threat landscape from Q3 2025 from Belgium. I'll try to provide you with the latest trends and metrics that we observed and some general recommendations for each of those. So let's start with the evolution of cyber incident notification we received in Belgium. So the graph on the slide is showing you the incident notifications we received every month since August 2023. In the last quarter, we received 159 notifications, where 143 were related to cyber incidents. This is very similar to what we saw in Q2, which was 158, so one less. In Q3, so of this 159 notifications, there were 75 for NIS2 regulated entities, where 55 were classified as essential and 20 were classified as important entities under NIS2. And these incidents would share exposure across all different sectors for NIS2. There is no one sector being targeted much more than the others. But since there are only 75 for NIS2 regulated entities, that means that the majority of the notifications we receive are from organizations that are not subject to NIS2. So this shows again that cybersecurity risks are systematic and certainly not limited to organizations that fall under these NIS2 restrictions. This was also a trend we observed in Q2, that we increasingly get these kinds of voluntary notifications, and we believed that this the increased focus on NIS2 may have prompted this additional report from our organization as well. And we hope that this reflects an increased trust in the CCB, with more and more companies now voluntarily reporting incidents. And this is also a previous significant change from the previous year, with a 96% increase since before the NIS2 directive. So when we start breaking up these incidents into the different types, we see that account compromises dominated the Belgian threat landscape. Although these can often be mitigated quite fast, these can lead to more impactful intrusions very quickly, and are often even a precursor to ransomware. In this setting, quick detection and mitigation is key. The second most reported, and also the one that we think is most impactful, is ransomware, where we had 23 cases reported in Q3. In the next part of the talk, we will take a deeper dive into each of these specific threats one by one. So we'll look into account compromise, ransomware, and the denial of service attacks we observe. So let's start with ransomware. Like we saw in the previous slides, we had 23 cases reported in Q3 to us, which may sound like a lot, but actually Belgium is doing quite well. If we look to the trends of the world, or even just Europe, the amount of ransomware cases is still going up, while in Belgium the numbers are stagnating or even decreasing. The top actors we saw in Belgium were Killen and Inc. Ransom, with both 4 cases, shortly followed by the Warlock Group with 3 reported cases, which is not very different than what we've seen in other countries as well. The main interesting thing is that the manufacturing sector keeps on being the most targeted sector in Belgium and even worldwide. Ransomware actors are financially motivated and will always take the one that is easiest and the most likely to pay to limit their downtime. And here it is the downtime for many manufacturing companies that makes them more likely to pay. And some highlights on new developments we've seen in ransomware is mainly the Warlock ransomware, which also had 3 cases in Belgium, now uses the tool field exploitation, which is the 0 days in Microsoft SharePoint, and the increased use of AI by different groups. For example, the new Ransomware as a Service global group now offers affiliates an AI-driven bot, an AI-driven chatbot which does the negotiations for them in a mobile control panel. Then PromptLock was discovered by ASAT and is the first ransomware strain that is powered by AI. So they use the OpenAI GPT 3.5 model to generate and execute malicious code in real time. Then there was a new ransomware gang, LunaLocker, which now extorts companies by threatening to turn their intellectual property into AI training data. Then at the end of each sector, I will try to give some recommendations. So we recommend strongly to have a good backup strategy, where we recommend a 3-to-1 strategy, which is always keep 3 copies of your data on 2 different media, with 1 being offsite. And these backups should be reliable and have regular integrity checks, and also verify that you can restore from these backups whenever needed. Have also an EDR on all your systems and keep them up to date. Then next, the one where we saw the most incidents reported were account compromises. And this, from the graph and the numbers we have, it seems to be growing every day. We have never seen this much account compromises in the past. And these account compromises can have a variety of impacts, with data leak and exposures, disruptions by them using these credentials, financial fraud, using tactics like CEO impersonations, launch further phishing campaigns with trusted accounts. You can say fake invoices or thousands of phishing emails to their whole contact list. And lastly, these accounts are also sold to ransomware actors, which will seriously disrupt your organization. It is therefore key that you can respond very quickly on these kind of threats. So one of the main causes for account compromise remains phishing. On our email address, suspicious@saveonweb.be, which is an email address everyone can forward to their phishing to, we've received in the last quarter close to 2.5 million emails. And the graph below shows you the emails we received every day. So, and on average, this amounts to more than 27,000 emails every day, which is close to 20 mails per minute. And from these mails, we've been able to extract 46,000 unique malicious URLs. And from those, 4,000 unique domains were tagged as malicious. And in collaboration with the ISPs, we were able to block those domains on a national level. So, but not only phishing emails with malicious websites is the main cause. There are also other ways to infect people with information stealers. In Belgium and even worldwide, Luma Stealer dominated the amount of credentials stolen this year, with Radamantis, Vidar, and Redline completing the top 4 in Belgium. These infections can happen in a variety of ways. From malicious attachments in these emails we received, to fake updates, click fix, and whatever. So let me show you one example of one widespread case we've seen recently. So there was a Google ad campaign in June that was promoting malicious PDF editors online. There were multiple sites where you could download such a tool, which is displayed on the slide. and they also use SEO positioning to be top results when you search for something with PDF in it. And after the 60-day Google Ad campaign ended, these PDF editors got weaponized with credential stealers, and we believe to be widely spread because of this Google Ad campaign and the amount of incidents we had reported to us containing this malicious PDF editor. So if this picture seems familiar to you, we might want to refer you to our website where we provide some general guidelines what to do when you have this kind of infection. So in general, for account compromises, we keep on asking to use MFA wherever possible, since we notice in a lot of incidents that the attack could have been prevented if MFA was in place. Also, strong identity and access management is key, where you should revoke users and sessions that are no longer used. The continuous monitoring of account behaviors for anomalous login patterns is also important. If someone logs into your VPN from another account, from account through a VPN or from another country, you should seriously start asking questions. So, on the third place of the amount of reported incidents, we had DDoS attacks. And even though DDoS might not be a priority for everyone, they can still have quite a big impact. So this quarter, the hacktivist activity was shaped and started by the law enforcement operation Eastwood in July. This was a joint international operation by Europol, coordinated by Europol and Eurojust, and this was targeting the pro-Russian activist group known as 057. This resulted in the disruption of their attack infrastructure, consisting over 100 systems worldwide, including some major server infrastructure. There were also several arrest warrants issued for members based in Russia, and Belgium was also supporting country in this campaign. But very soon, they started a new campaign with the time of retribution hashtag, and very soon Belgium was also being targeted in this campaign. So for a whole weekend, the same 16 organizations were targeted in government, mobility, and energy sectors. These had quite a low impact, and this can partly be explained by their loss of infrastructure, but also because they were targeting multiple countries at once, which is not always their modus operandi. Then we had the second wave in August, which was a 7-day campaign, and a total of 122 organizations spanning sectors government and public administration, finance, transport, logistics, energy, and all the rest were being targeted over 7 days. The public sector was the most impacted by the DDoS activity, accounting for almost 42% of these attacks. And these attacks were claimed by no-name 057 in alliance with the hacktivist group, The Alliance. Overall, the impact was pretty low, with temporary disruptions to several organizations, but no long-term vulnerability. Most of the organizations responded pretty effectively, also partly thanks to the support of CCB, because we reached out to all these 102 organizations and provided them with recommendations and block lists to implement. For recommendations on DDoS, I've listed a few here, but I would much more like you to refer to the Cyber Tips webinar we had last month on September 9th. If you missed that one, you can scan the QR code or click the link in the PDF, where the recording and slides are available. Then also, it will not be a trend landscape presentation if I would not talk about some APT activities. Firstly, the amount of 0 days being exploited in the world has certainly not declined, with the vulnerabilities in SharePoint, Netscaler, and Cisco that kept us quite busy in the summer. At CCB, we try to do our best to identify and warn all the organizations that are vulnerable to these kinds of 0 days. Then I also wanted to highlight a new player in the European cyber threat landscape, the Donut APT group, which is believed to be an India-linked cyber espionage group. And according to a recent report by Trellix, they have been sending several spear phishing emails impersonating defense officials to several European foreign ministries for espionage purposes. So it's not always the big four, to say. And I've linked the blog below for everyone to take a look at if they want. And the last part, the last bit I wanted to discuss is supply chain, and which also had quite a big impact in shaping the Belgian threat landscape. Supply chain attacks can happen all the time, and can be very impactful. And there are two recent examples that I wanted to highlight here. So you had the Salesforce Draft AI chatbot plugin, which was subject to data breach, and several old tokens were leaked, where these old tokens could be used to exploit data for several organizations. As you might know, there was just an announcement yesterday evening about a data leak at F5, which seems to be kind of similar in terms of the impact it might be able to have. But we are still assessing this information, and you can keep an eye out on our website for any info we can share. But it's definitely important to keep in mind. Then secondly, we had the Colon Aerospace ransomware case in September, which knocked out the check-in system for several airports. And this caused widespread travel disruption across Europe. But some airports had a backup system in place for their check-ins, and they were able to recover pretty quickly. So this shows that if you have a strong third-party risk management program and a clear view on your software supply chain, you can try to limit these kinds of attacks as much as possible. Then lastly, I would like to finish with the outlook for the upcoming quarter or even next year. So we believe that there won't be any significant changes in the upcoming quarter. Ransomware and account compromises will still remain the main threats. And I don't believe that the spike we saw in Q3 or even in September will go away soon. Small and medium-sized entities will remain popular targets, and with phishing and vulnerability exploitation as being important initial access factors for different cyber criminals. Thirdly, we want to stress again on this third-party risk and the supply chain within your organization. Test your security of open source software you use and keep them up to date. And lastly, as always, geopolitical tensions will continue to shape the future of the cyber threat landscape. And with that, I hope this presentation was useful for some of you, and I will pass the word back to Caroline. And if there are any questions, you can put them in the chat, and there are many colleagues of mine here that will be able to share them, answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Xander. That was a great overview. We had a few complaints regarding the sound quality.
Oh, no.
So not content, that's good. But indeed, like Alexander said, it was a very last minute switch. Normally we make sure that everyone has a good proper microphone, so we have good sound. But this was, yeah, the best we could do at the very last minute. So hope for your understanding here. There's also another question that I saw in the Q&A. It was about whether there are any organizations that have been sanctioned or investigated by the CCB following the reporting of a cybersecurity incident under the NIS2 directive. We don't have any NIS2 colleagues in the call right now, but we have a webinar tomorrow. My colleague will probably post it in the chat right now. It's about 1 year NIS2 and Siphon 2.0. So if you have the time, you can either join the webinar tomorrow. There will also be a recording, so you can always look back and otherwise ask the question to us by email. That's also possible.